The words hit with the force of a physical blow, shattering the fragile peace of our living room. Dad, don't you get it? I need the money now, not when you're gone. My daughter Amelia's voice was sharp, her face flushed with anger. The expensive porcelain teacup she'd been holding lay in pieces on the floor, its contents seeping into the fibers of the antique rug we'd cherished for years. I clutched the trust fund documents, the papers representing decades of careful financial planning, now feeling like a shield against my own child's demands. Amelia, I am not a bank, I said, my voice strained. The inheritance is for your future. Her husband, Liam, draped languidly across our best armchair, chimed in with a lazy smirk. Come on, Thomas. She's your only kid. What's a little advance to help us through a rough patch? A rough patch. That's what he called his latest gambling losses and Amelia's insatiable appetite for designer clothes. Their requests were a relentless tide, each one more audacious than the last. Help you? I stood up, my 67-year-old body protesting the sudden movement. My retirement savings are not a slush fund for your irresponsible choices. For 45 years, I worked. I sacrificed. I missed family dinners and holidays so that you could have a life of comfort, Amelia, so that your mother and I could have some peace in our old age. My wife Clara appeared in the doorway, her hands wringing a dish towel. Please, let's all just take a breath. Breathe? Amelia whirled on her mother. He's sitting on a fortune while we're about to lose everything. Everything you chose to risk, I retorted, my voice low but firm. Your suffering looks remarkably luxurious. The accusation hung in the air. Liam rose from the chair, his expression twisting into something ugly. You know, I think you enjoy this, old man. Watching us struggle. It makes you feel powerful, doesn't it? Get out, I said, the words erupting from a place of deep, final exhaustion. Both of you, get out of my house. Your house? Amelia's eyes narrowed. This is my childhood home. You can't just throw me out. Watch me, I said, walking to the front door and pulling it open. Don't come back until you're ready to talk about solutions that don't involve my bank account. You'll regret this, she seethed, grabbing her purse. When you're old and alone, remember this day. Remember choosing your money over your own family. The door slammed shut, the sound rattling the pictures on the wall. I stood there, watching her car peel out of the driveway, leaving a trail of black rubber and broken promises. Clara came to stand beside me, her hand a warm presence on my arm. The living room felt like a war zone. 45 years, I whispered, picking up the scattered legal documents. For this. Later that night, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. The words were painfully familiar. Hope you're happy, Dad. The kids miss their grandfather, but I guess your money is more important. Don't expect to hear from us. The grandchildren. The final, most painful weapon in her arsenal. Clara saw the message and her face crumpled. But something inside me had hardened. The cycle of emotional blackmail had to end. No more, Clara, I said, my voice filled with the resolve she hadn't heard in years. I will not be held hostage. 6 days later, on Father's Day morning, a delivery truck pulled up to our curb. It was unusual. We weren't expecting anything, and Sunday deliveries were a rare, expensive service. The driver handed me a medium-sized, surprisingly light box. "Happy Father's Day," he said. "Must be from someone who really cares." I brought the package inside, placing it on the coffee table. There was no return address. "Who is it from?" Clara asked, her brow furrowed with curiosity. "I have no idea," I replied, studying the plain brown cardboard. Clara leaned in closer, her eyes scanning the box, her breath caught. "Thomas," she whispered, her voice tight with alarm. "Don't open it." "Why?" She pointed to a series of tiny, almost invisible punctures along the side. "Look, air holes. Whatever is in there is alive." My blood ran cold. As if on cue, a faint, dry, rustling sound came from within the box. We both froze. It came again, followed by a low, distinct hiss. "Call 911, Clara breathed, her fingers digging into my arm. "Now." My hands trembled as I dialed. "We've received a suspicious package," I told the dispatcher. "It has air holes and it's hissing." The 10 minutes we waited for the police felt like an eternity. Who would do this? The anonymous sender, the timing on Father's Day. It all pointed to one horrifying conclusion. This wasn't a gift. It was a message. A threat. 2 officers arrived, their calm professionalism a stark contrast to our terror. We explained the situation, the Sunday delivery, the hissing. One of the officers, a man named Reeves, examined the box from a safe distance. "I've seen this before," he said grimly. "We'll call animal control." As we waited, he asked the question I was dreading. "Do you have any idea who might have sent this? Any recent disputes?" My mind flashed to a charge on my credit card statement from a few weeks ago. One Amelia had access to for emergencies. Serpent City Exotics, $145.50. At the time, I'd assumed it was a terrarium or some toy for the kids. Now, the name was a sickening confirmation. "No," I lied, the word tasting like ash. "No idea." Officer Reeves gave me a look that said he didn't believe me for a second. An hour later, a non-venomous but very real 3-foot-long garter snake was safely removed from our home. As the officers and the animal specialist drove away, Clara and I were left in the unnerving silence of our violated home. "You're going to call her, aren't you?" Clara asked. "I have to know," I said. The phone rang twice. "Dad!" Amelia's voice was sickeningly cheerful. "Happy Father's Day. How's it going?" "It's been an interesting morning," I said, keeping my voice level. "You wouldn't happen to know anything about a package that was delivered, would you?" "No, what happened?" Her denial was immediate. But then, in the background, I heard it. A quiet, stifled snicker of laughter from her husband, Liam. The sound of someone who thought they had just pulled off the perfect, cruel joke. All doubt evaporated. "Never mind," I said, my voice like ice. "It was nothing. Enjoy your day." I hung up the phone, the full weight of her betrayal crashing down on me. She had sent a snake to her own father, and her husband found it amusing. "He laughed," I told Clara, my voice flat. "Liam laughed." Clara's hand found mine. "What are you going to do?" I looked toward my office, where my computer held the keys to the financial kingdom that had enabled Amelia's behavior for her entire adult life. I'm going to teach her the meaning of consequences. That evening, I sat at my desk and systematically dismantled the financial safety net I had spent decades building for her. The credit card she was an authorized user on, access revoked. The automatic monthly transfers to her bank account, canceled. The car insurance I paid for, terminated. In 30 minutes, I undid 30 years of enabling. The next morning, the inevitable call came. "Dad, what did you do? My card was declined." "I know you sent the snake, Amelia," I said simply. Her panicked denials quickly turned to rage. "Fine. You want to play this game? You will never see your grandchildren again." The threat that once would have broken me now felt hollow. "Amelia," I said, my voice calm and final, "if you are the kind of person who would terrorize your own parents and use your children as pawns, then frankly, it's better for them if they don't see me. Those threats don't work anymore." A stunned silence met my words. She had no moves left. The game was over. She hung up. The next day, she and Liam arrived at our house demanding I reverse my decision. Standing on my own porch, I felt a sense of peace I hadn't known in years. When Liam tried to threaten me, I told him any further contact would be considered harassment and reported to the police. They stared at me, finally seeing not an easy source of cash, but a man who had reached his limit. They left, and we have not heard from them since. That evening, my wife and I sat in our quiet kitchen. "Are you okay?" she asked. "I am," I said, and I meant it. "I have one more step to take." The next day, I met with our lawyer. We created an ironclad educational trust for our grandchildren, ensuring their needs would be met without their parents ever touching a dime. We also filed for a restraining order. The legal documents were served. The boundaries were set. For the first time in decades, our home was a sanctuary, not a battleground. My love for my daughter hadn't vanished, but it had transformed. It was now the tough love that refused to fund her self-destruction. The quiet in our house was no longer the tense silence of waiting for the next crisis, but the peaceful silence of a storm that had finally passed.